Hi, I'm Pastor Karen Scheimer, pastor of Canby United Methodist Church. I'd like to share with you some few words to think about on this Palm Sunday. First of all, I'd like to read from Matthew chapter 21. When they had come near Jerusalem and had reached Bethphage at the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, "Go into the village ahead of you, and immediately you will find a donkey tied and a colt with her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, just say this: 'The Lord needs these,' and he will send them immediately." This took place to fulfill what had been spoken through the prophet, saying, "Tell the daughter of Zion, look, your king is coming to you, humble and mounted on a donkey and on a colt, the foal of a donkey." The disciples went and did as Jesus had directed them. They brought the donkey and the colt and put their cloaks on them, and he sat on them. A very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, and others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. The crowds that went ahead of him and that followed were shouting, "Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest heaven!" When he entered Jerusalem, the whole city was in turmoil, asking, "Who is this?" The crowds were saying, "This is the prophet Jesus from Nazareth in Galilee." A few years ago, on another Palm Sunday, I posed the question, how can a whole city be in turmoil, united in asking one question? After these weeks of sheltering at home and walking with the entire world through the question of COVID-19, it seems more than possible for a city to be united in one pursuit, following one question. While we do not agree 100% on all of the information, it seems that the world is working together for the health and life of all. When Jesus entered Jerusalem, the whole city was in turmoil. The Greek word translated at turmoil has the root we use for seismology, earthquakes. It's not surprising that the city was shaken, for Jesus came from the Mount of Olives. The symbolism is rich and clear. The Mount of Olives was the place from where it was understood that God's final rescue would come. Although God's victory is promised in Zechariah, it is clear that the prophet envisaged a terrible time. How do we make sense of this Jesus, then, entering Jerusalem not on a mighty war horse, but on a donkey? Not with fancy clothes and fine attendants, but greeted by common people who have laid their cloaks on the road. It's no simple thing to say Jesus, the prophet from Galilee, has entered the city of God. His presence is a complete challenge to the way things are. He comes in the spirit of Amos, Isaiah, Hosea, all the prophets. The people in turmoil know that his coming meant earth-shaking change. His presence among us today brings the same earth-shaking invitation to transformation. Perhaps the text is asking if we are ready, or if not ready, at least willing to let this Jesus shake our world. We've made so many adjustments in the past few weeks. Every detail of our lives has been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. It feels like an earthquake has shaken the very underpinnings of our lives. And so we join with the crowd on the streets of Jerusalem, even from the confines of our homes or in the silent grocery stores, standing on tape markers 6 feet apart. We can feel the rumbling and know our hearts are shaking. What is happening to the things we have held so dear in every area of our lives? The church is asking so many questions. Can God work beyond the structures we have laid out in the gathered church? How do we define community? How do we remain connected when we cannot meet face to face? How do we share communion? We ourselves are prompted to ask so many questions. What or whom have I overlooked or taken for granted? What have I assumed will be business as usual? This wake-up call, this earthquake, is an invitation to each of us to examine our lives and to welcome God's answer, Jesus, to help us hold the questions. One thing we know for sure from the story of Palm Sunday, Holy Week, and Easter is that when we meet Jesus, life is never the same again. I heard a presentation this week by Todd Bolsinger, a professor at Fuller Theological Seminary. Todd has researched the story of the Lewis and Clark expedition and has written a book containing his insights about leadership called Canoeing the Mountains. One of his many helpful insights has struck me since then. Lewis and Clark were tasked with finding a water route across the United States. When the river ended at the mountains in Montana, they had to learn a whole new approach to their task, using different skills and resources to cross the land on foot. When they had scaled the mountains and walked a while, they did find the Columbia River and were able to complete their transcontinental journey. But the terrain required an earth-shaking change in their approach. This worldwide crisis has demanded change in the way we approach so many things. The church has felt the rumble too. The city is in turmoil. May we keep our eyes on this powerful and peaceful King, Jesus, who continues to lead us into turmoil and surprise us with his deep presence in the midst of it all.